shooter training. I was able to implement that here in the Pryor school system, and I taught that not only in the school system, but took it beyond the schools around Northeast Oklahoma, the school district, to hospitals, churches, you name it. Went to GRDA. I was a lieutenant at GRDA with my time there, where I was a supervisor over several guys. I'll talk about the morale of that. Part of what led me here was being in the school. When I went to the school resource job, I was in the community. Being in the community is something that was special, being able to work with the people, with the kids, to see a different side of law enforcement. And so when I worked with that, 2015 came around, me and Chief Nichols discussed running for police chief. At that time, I wasn't ready. So I left. I went to GRDA about 6 or 8 months ago. I came back to Chief Nichols and we talked. We had a discussion about what his plans were for the future. I mean, he's been here a long time, and I respect him. So we talked about that. I didn't want to run against him. In that time span, people were coming to me from the community, and they were saying, it's time for a change. There's things going on in the community as far as the homeless issue. The communication's not there with the general public. They were asking me to run. People within the department were coming to me.
Go ahead and finish that thought.
Okay, and were asking me to run. At a certain point, my loyalty, I had to decide where it lies. Does it lie with Chief Nichols, or does it lie with the department and the community? So I had to decide. That's where it lies with the department and community, so that's why I ran.
Thank you. Yeah, if you're in the middle of a sentence, just FYI, I will let you finish, but just that sentence, please. Thank you.
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for coming out here tonight to listen to us, and I'd like to thank Friends of the Library and the Chamber for giving us this opportunity. I think most of you all probably know who I am. I'm Dennis Nichols. I've wanted to be a policeman ever since I was a little boy. And I don't know if some of you all are not going to realize this name, but Dick Tracy. When I was a kid, Dick Tracy, I carried around a clipboard. I wanted to be like Dick Tracy. He had a wristwatch that he could call in to headquarters with. And I thought, man, this is great, this communication. But as I got a little older, I thought, oh, that's wild. You can't do that. That's just science fiction. Well, today it's reality. And it's amazing how much things have changed and how much law enforcement has changed over the years. When I got on the department in 1973 as a patrol officer, I'd only been on a few months, and I was working a plainclothes assignment. And my parents had always told me, respect authority, respect the law, respect your elders. That's the way I was brought up. Well, I was working a plainclothes assignment, and I arrested an individual. And I found out right away that not everybody respects law enforcement like I thought I did. I felt like one of those dolls that when you knock it over a punching bag and it pops back up. I was that doll. I kept going down, coming up, and he kept punching me down. But I kept him busy till help arrived. And there have been other issues over the years. There's been a lot of violence, but there's also been a lot of sad encounters. I've had the unfortunate opportunity to go talk to a grandparent or a parent and let them know their child had been killed in an automobile accident. Or there are plenty of other issues. One that really sticks in my mind, and I'll probably never forget, was I got called on an infant death syndrome case, and I had to sit there with that family, young family, as they asked me why did this happen. I'm thinking the same thing. So my goal in law enforcement is to try to help people. It always has been, ever since I've been in it. When I got elected, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to move our officers forward and to be part of the community, whether that to partner with the city and the public to make this a professional department. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, again, sorry, my mic was having some issues there. Okay, thank you. Our next question is, and this is going to be for you, Dennis. There's been a lot of talk in this election cycle about transparency. What is transparency as it relates to Pryor City government? How will you promote transparency in your role?
To me, transparency is being open with the public. I think the city of Pryor does a good job of that now. We have open council meetings. We have agendas that are posted online. The packets for those agendas are posted online. People have the opportunity to look at that online ahead of time to see what issues are going to be discussed. And then we have open meetings that they can attend. People also have the opportunity to meet before the council. All they have to do is sign up, get with the mayor, get their approval, and they have an opportunity to speak for 5, 10 minutes, whatever they allow, to air any grievances or ask any questions that they might want to ask. And to me, transparency with the police department is I want to be as open with the public as we can be. That's one of the reasons that we have body cams and in-car video now. If there's questions on an arrest or whatever, then we can pull that up and look and see both sides of the story there. So we want to be as open as possible as we can be. There are some things that we can't talk about. Some investigations are private and we can't release that information. But I always try to be responsive and respond to the public if they have a question or if they have an issue. Thank you.
I think transparency is just that. It's open line of communication. Within the department, you know, you need transparency from the chief all the way down to dispatchers, you know, animal control, also out in the community. You need to have that transparency. And everybody's talked about it lately. Transparency on all sides of the government, not only police department, you know, city officials, whatever it may be at, but transparency is that open line of communication. This is a good example of that. Being able to come out into a public setting and speak to your elected officials, because ultimately that's who you answer to. I mean, you answer to the city council. You have to have that good working relationship with the city council, the mayor, but ultimately the people are your boss, and you have to answer to them as far as what's going on. And there's no better way than getting out in the community. Community events. We're in a time now where social media is your friend. You can get on social media, and there's one chief down in Tahlequah that I've watched, and he does Facebook Live with the chief. And it may not be weekly, but every so often he'll get on there and just do an update. What's going on in Tahlequah, how many arrests they've made, things that are going on within town. But I think it needs to go further out in the community where you talk to the people as far as what's going on in your neighborhood. Because there's probably things that we are doing in law enforcement that you may not see, but being able to communicate to you guys as far as here's what we're doing. Or maybe there's things that we don't know about, and be able to take that and be receptive. Pass that on to the officers, because that will also build that morale with that transparency throughout, you know, no matter what it is. You know, there's so many variables that it could be involved in, but it is good lines to start, as far as it starts with the chief and works itself down, and then it goes out in the community, and it can come back from the community. So just having that open line where they can get hold of the chief.
Transparency to me is it's a nice buzzword. I don't think people really understand. Everybody has a different definition of transparency. I don't think that the Pryor government, for the most part, especially the police department, is very transparent at the moment. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's something we need to work on. There's different programs and apps in cities, one that a lot of cities use, that allow citizens to actually see real time. When's the last time anybody knew how many arrests they made last week? None of that information's really easy to find. You can find it. How many burglaries was in your neighborhood last month? That's stuff that we need to be transparent about. That's stuff that we can take and use that data and fix problems. As far as our city government, transparency is covered by the Open Meetings Records Act. They do a good job at that. But the couple city council meetings I've been watching here lately, there's not much of a report from the department heads. You don't have a clue what's going on. The city council's voting on stuff and not reading it out loud, so unless you know exactly what they're talking about, you're kind of lost. That's my definition of transparency.
Okay, thank you. I'm good.
To me, transparency means keeping the public informed on all changes regarding the city. To do this, I plan to utilize many modern tools available, such as social media, to notify the citizens of any changes that happen within the city, in addition to the current process of posting in the paper, updating the city's website, and providing copies of any documents as they are requested. Thank you.
That was a good answer. Okay. So transparency in Pryor city government, to me, is an obligation to share information with citizens that is needed to make informed decisions and hold officials accountable for the conduct of the people's business. Within my role, if elected, I will ensure that information within legal bounds is freely available and accessible to all citizens, to those affected by the decisions or enforcements.
All right, thank you. All right, question number 3. What have you learned from previous experience or service that will help you in this role?
Okay, you mix up the questions a little bit, so it threw me for a loop. I'm like, oh my gosh, where's my card? Okay. Okay, I'm ready. Okay, so during my time at NSU, I actually served as secretary for the sorority I was involved with. This role required me to learn to write agendas and take minutes for our weekly meetings. I also attended all school leadership meetings and reported necessary information back to my sorority chapter, which required, of course, good communication skills, completing a bachelor's degree as well as a certificate of completion from OU in web development taught me perseverance and to never back down from a challenge, and that trying something new and difficult is worth the fear and uncertainty. So working for myself in my house cleaning business and as low man in customer service jobs taught me humility, the importance of grit and hard work, and being held accountable for my actions and quality of work. And finally, being a taproom manager at Fat Toad, I've learned to accommodate many different personalities and to meet people where they are. I've also learned I have a pretty hands-on management style. I have no issue being in the trenches while also carrying the load of just manager duties. I've also had the privilege of watching the owners of Fat Toad build their business and learn from them how hard work and communication can really take you pretty far. They have been wonderful examples of leadership.
My employment with both Mace County District Attorney's Office and Rogers County Court Clerk's Office provided me with valuable knowledge and insight as to how the court system works. Municipalities are slightly different, but they have very many similarities that I can apply my wisdom to. This knowledge gives me the ability to modify the interoffice processes to create a more modern and efficient office, of allowing us to provide valuable information, record more accessible for the citizens of Pryor Creek. As a human resources coordinator, I learned the importance of providing a safe space for my team. I know how invaluable it is to be compassionate, dependable, honest, fair, and most importantly, to listen to my team.
Well, that's kind of an easy one. I've done the very job for which I'm running at. There's no better experience. Countless hours of study, getting grants and budgets. I couldn't name how many classes on budgets, grants writing, which is very important. The chief is an administrative job. It's very important to have your vision and sell your vision. And it's completely different than any other position in law enforcement. I started at the bottom as a reserve volunteer, worked as a jailer, worked as a dispatcher. That's one job that I feel sorry for. That's a hard job. Then I worked up to deputy, went over to the PD, became a patrolman, and worked every rank that they had. I was assistant chief for quite some time. And I thought even being assistant chief, I was ready. There's a sharp learning curve trying to run a department. It's completely different. But there's some unique challenges, and it's fast-paced, and that's what I like. I'm a very hands-on manager type. You ask any of my ex-employees, some of them still work at the state around here. One thing they always said is, like 3 in the morning, I'd show up just to see what's going on. And I think that's what we need. We need a manager that has the experience, has a vision, has a plan, and is the type of person to get out there and check and make sure people's doing what they need to be doing. Anytime we had a major call, I was on scene, hands-on, always verifying that things was being done by the book and how I wanted them done. And that's what I intend on doing here. Thank you.
So I've been in law enforcement, like I said, 21 years, and leading by example is kind of the way I've always been. I've always been a proactive officer, boots on the ground type of guy. No matter whether it was K-9, the school resource officer job, the trainings, the CLEAP certified instructor stuff, the ILEA training, which is a month-long training down in Dallas, Texas for law enforcement administration, all those things I took in and I brought back to my department to try to make myself better and my department better. One was the DARE program. When Sergeant Adams left, I got in there was no booklet that said, here's what you do as a DARE officer. And so one of the first things I did was went to the DARE training, and they taught you how to speak. You got out there and started speaking, but I got back, we didn't have the money to really run the DARE program effectively. So I, found ways to start building that program, and fundraisers was one of them. I used my wife on that because she's a resource in the school, and so we started doing fundraisers, working with local organizations to build that money. The active shooter trainings that I went to, the Alice was another one. Went to down in Tahlequah, and it was involving active shooters in schools. What would you do? And I learned from that, and I thought, man, we need that in our school. So I brought that back as a train the trainer, and I hit the ground running with it. And I taught that thing for the last 5-6 years all over Northeast Oklahoma. The alert training, which was an exterior response to active shooter. And when I was at GRDA, I had the opportunity to go to it, and it was more geared to law enforcement, teaching law enforcement to respond to these active shooter events. And I saw a need for that, and I pushed and went and got the equipment that was needed off a grant-funded program out of Dallas, Texas. We brought it up, and I put that 3-day training on for all these officers, and that took 10 instructors. So I use all that to get back to, it really is leading by example, showing these guys that I'm not going to tell you what to do, I'm going to show you what to do. You build that morale up, and you show them, here's what a leader's supposed to do. And in an elected position, it's different. You're out in the community. You have to answer to the public, so you have to build that rapport out in the public, and that's where the working in the school and the community really built that for me, and
Let's
has
give
driven.
time.
Thank you. My experience has been 36 years serving as your chief of police. And in that time period, I have done everything, and not only in that, but before, when I first started on the police department in 1973, which gives me almost 50 years of experience, I've done everything in the department. I've did animal control, I've dispatched, I've cleaned bathrooms, I've done whatever we needed, whatever needed to be done to get the job done. I've seen the grants processes that we have to go through, the budgeting processes that we go through, the outside agencies that we partner with, Cherokee Nation, OHP, Mays County Sheriff's Office, whoever. I have that rapport with the community, and I've built that up over a period of time. And again, I've done all these jobs. I've been on patrol. I've been out and watched my guys. I'm a little older now. It's a little harder for me to stay up all night. But in the past, I was out with my guys in the middle of the night to see what was going on and what they were doing. I'm concerned about this community and this department. I love this community, and I love this department. And I appreciate my wife allowing me all these years the opportunity to be able to do this job and to put the time in that I've done. There's been many times I'm there 7 days a week. I'm looking at the logs to see what happened during the night. I'm also checking to see where the crimes are being committed so that we can address these issues. And we now just recently purchased a new records management system that's going to help us define a lot of this more in depth, like Mr. McClellan was saying. There's programs out there, and we're in the process now of getting that implemented where we can get some use out of it. But once again, thank you.
Thank you. Next question. If elected, what is the first issue you will address? What is your first action, what is your first action item for that issue?
Well, again, I've been your police chief for the last 36 years, I'm a little bit familiar with what is going on, and what I'm going to do is what I would do any other day is go back to work. I'm going to look at what's going on, what the issues are at the time. It may be an issue with homeless people, which in turn sometimes deals with mental health people. It may be larcenies. It may be vandalism. I'm going to look at those on a daily basis and reevaluate what we need to do and place people in places where I think that it's appropriate to handle those situations. So that's what I'm going to do whenever I go back. It's not going to be I'm just going to go tell you I'm going to do one thing, because I'm not. I'm going to do a lot of things. And I'll be reviewing them again on a daily basis to see what I feel needs to be done for the community. Again, my goal is to have a safe, secure environment for the citizens in this community. Whether you want to use the parks, the recreation center, the library, downtown, Walmart, wherever you want to go, I want it to be a safe, secure environment for our community. Thank you.
So if elected, you know, I'm going to take a different stance on some of this, because I think one of the first things you got to look at is within. The leadership all the way down to the officers, dispatchers, animal control. What's going on there? The morale, if the morale's down in a department, it's not going to be a proactive department. It's going to be reactive, which is going to affect the community, which is going to affect the homeless population, which is going to affect crimes, which is going to affect the gamut of everything. So you've got to figure out what's going on within first. And I think that starts by looking at the top and going down. And I did that when I decided to run. I called officers and I said, here's why I'm running. And I laid the foundation for them to lay the groundwork. If I'm elected, one of the first things I will do when I take office is sit down with every officer, every dispatcher, every animal control officer, and say, what is the issues that you see at Pryor Police Department? And take that. And then say, what is the good that you see at Pryor Police Department? And take that. And then go back to the administration and say, here's the issues that we need to address. Let's address them, and let's move forward on a good foundation. And then take that into the public also. That goes, like I said, that builds the morale of the department, the community, kind of gets you back on a good foundation, solid foundation that you can start from. And I think leadership starts at the top. It has to start with number one. Look at ourselves, because nobody's perfect. And there's things that we can do, you know, in an evaluation, you may evaluate a employee, but you also need to look at yourself too from time to time and see what can we do on a different level to make ourselves better, our department better, and this community better.
Actually, I put a lot of thought into this. I have a detailed plan. Be three things all at once, because they all intertwine. We need to look at the data on our schedule versus the crimes versus where they're at. I'm going to adjust that. I'm going to have to adjust the schedule first thing, because I want to send the officers off for some training. We need to get the homeless issue. We've all talked about it. Nobody's really doing anything. That's going to be front line. Police department can't do anything per se. That's going to be a city problem that the city will take care of. But the police department's going to be first in line on that. It's going to be the first responders dealing with it. And it's very important that the officers understand how to deal with the homeless and how to classify them. Whether it's a mental health issue or a addiction of some sort or some other issue, and then we can find the ways that we need to help them. I think it's very important that we get the proper training and we set the scheduling for the police department correctly for the time of day and the day of the week. That's not being done right now. Like I said, I think there's a lot of things that we can do better, but I think that's the main thing. And I think that and the leadership change, because I'm a very hands-on guy, will correct a lot of the other small problems. That's all I have.
First, I will learn how to do each other position's assigned duties and responsibilities. I believe that anyone in a leadership position should know how to do each and every task, no matter how big or how small it is. Then I would begin to cross-train every deputy clerk on the duties and responsibilities of each other position, so that everybody knows in the office how the office functions and no citizen has to be turned away.
So, since I'm not in the office right now. I don't know of any specific issues, but I would just start out with communicating with my team members to gain a better understanding of what is currently working and what is not. I would collaborate on solutions and ideas to figure out a system that will work best for everyone. Part of that will include myself learning how to do each job within the department, just like Courtney said. I think that's a wonderful idea. Am I done? Oh, Mike, have I been talking that long? Where was I? Oh, yeah, so I can step in wherever needed, and yeah, everyone just learn how to do each other's jobs. So, yeah, so we can just function better, I guess. I don't know.
Okay, thank you. All right, our next question. In the event that you are not elected, how will you continue to work to improve Pryor?
So regardless of being elected, I plan to become more involved with the Pryor Main Street efforts. I think they're doing wonderful things. I love their vision and tenacity, and it's something I really want to be a part of.
If I am not elected, I would continue to do my current job as deputy clerk and provide Casey with my ideas if requested and work together to improve the office and their processes as she would see fit.
We continue to work with the community, hold accountable our government officials, and work with the youth, which I have a couple ideas, regardless whether I'm elected or not, that I'm going to spring forward here in about 6 months.
I'm reserved with the police department now. I continue to do that role is what I'd plan to do. My wife works in the school system. This is our home. Our kids go to school here. We got grandbabies going to school here. So I'm still going to be involved in this community. I'm on the rec center board. I've been on the Hope Coalition before. I mean, I'm going to continue to still, be boots on the ground in this community and do work for it.
If I'm not reelected, first of all, I'll be disappointed. But I want you to know that, again, this is my home. I've been here all my life. I love Pryor. I love the people here. I love the officers here. I love all city administration. I've really grown close to a lot of the other city employees throughout the years. So if I'm not reelected, I'll do my best to support our local government, our elected officials, and support our community in ways that I can. I'll be looking for some volunteer. I did some volunteer work at the shelter, and I'll continue to do some of that. I have a passion for animals also, but I want to stay involved. I want to see our community grow and prosper and be a place that people want to come and want to live. Thank you.
Great, thank you. What is your vision for the your department's future, and how will you work to make it a reality?
My vision for the department is to, once again, I've always wanted us to move forward and move forward in a positive manner. One of the big things that we're going to be looking at now, we just got a wonderful new facility down there. Don't know if you all got to see it or not, but I'd encourage you, if you hadn't, make an appointment, come down and take a look at the building. But one of the things about the building I'm most proud of is our training room. And we have a combined training room there for police and fire that either side can use. And with that training room, we're going to be able to bring in a lot more classes that we have not been able to because we might not have been able to locate a place to hold them. But we have, out of our 33 officers that we have, right now we have 16 that are CLEAT certified instructors. And I intend for us to start moving forward with in-house training with those instructors. And we've also sent our supervisors to the FBI's LEADER program, which is a leadership course which teaches our supervisors how to lead current officers and future officers. I realize things change. We hear people talk about change. Law enforcement has changed all the time. Ever since I've been chief, there's always change. The laws change, techniques change, people's attitudes and values change. So there's always change in law enforcement. So I'm going to be looking to address those issues and do the best that I can to continue to move our officers in a forward motion to project a professional, efficient police department for this community. Thank you.
My vision for the future, when I started at Pryor PD, it was hard to get on here. There was not many openings. There wasn't much turnover. It was really hard to get on at. That's not the same anymore. And so one of my visions for the future is to make Pryor a place that other officers want to come to. Instead of losing officers to these surrounding agencies, we bring them here. If you become a training ground, Pryor's losing money. You put a lot of time and money into those officers if you let them go. So you want to do everything you can in your power to keep those officers here. We want to get proactive again, and that starts with the leadership that shows those officers. We talk about training and in-house training. If you go to basic instructor development, that's one thing, but they don't teach you how to speak to people. They don't teach you how to teach. It's really hard for some people to get up there and just take a training and teach it. So you've got to work with those officers and you know, mold them to where they can do that kind of thing. So bringing back the proactive stuff, that's going to affect the community, because I've heard traffic enforcement, I've heard homeless population. Guess what? If you got a good morale in the department, they're wanting to work, they're the guys that are doing the job that, hey, you know, if I get out here and work hard, I'm going to be noticed, and you know, there's going to be some benefit to me working hard. You got to have that for those officers, and it's going to spill over into the community. They're going to start working that traffic hard. They're going to start doing those things. Some things that I've seen at Pryor PD that I would like that have gone is a special operations team. And I know funding is part of it, but you have to work with your area resources. Just because Pryor may not have the money because it's based off sales tax, and I understand how that works, you work with your resources that you have around you. GRDA is a huge one, and I come from GRDA, so I know the resources that they have right here in our backyard that we can utilize and try to bring a special operations team, because if something bad happens in town, that we need to be able to respond. And that starts with your administration. The administration should also be prepared. I mean, if we're officers, I mean, if we got to hit the ground, we got to cover shifts, whatever we got to do to make this happen here. So there's things as far as the enforcement goes that we can look at, as far as, you know, bicycle patrols, things. There's specialized units that I want to bring to Pryor PD.
All right, thank you.
My vision of the police department is to return it back to a service, a community service. I guarantee you that's why anybody that's sitting up here started. I know that's why I started when I was young. It has to be about helping the community. And I think that right now, we do have some morale issues. I don't think that it's money why we have a high turnover. I think a lot of it has to do with leadership and being consistent. Pryor is a great town. We got a lot going for it. I think that we just need to make sure that the police department returns to a public service. And we haven't had that in a while.
I envision that the city clerk's office creates such a positive environment that the citizens won't dread having to deal with the city. By maximizing the efficiency and updating inter-office processes, citizens will have the opportunity to handle their business in a timely manner by trained employees there to assist them with anything that involves the city.
Okay, so for the city in general, I just see our city becoming, continuing to become a really cool place to live, and a place where people want to be involved with the community. Like, they want to go to city council meetings, they want to know what's going on. Let's see, I see our leaders leading with integrity and not bullying or being petty, or I don't know, that might be a little idealistic. But I see the city clerk department specifically running like a well-oiled machine with team members that feel fulfilled and included and heard and valued. I will work towards this by, like I previously stated, collaborating with them and ensuring that we're always on the same page as a team. I will do my very best to create a healthy, happy, efficient work culture.
All right. What is your plan to address the city's excuse me, I keep reading the first word wrong. Address your department's budget and financial management. What is your plan to address your department's budget and financial management?
So from my understanding, the duties are pretty much set in this regard. But I will ensure that things stay above board and will address issues and discrepancies where necessary.
As city clerk, I will manage the clerk and the court budgets. I plan to deep dive into the current expenditures and determine if there's anything that could or should be changed. I will research the practices of other municipalities and softwares that could potentially save money, time, or both. I will also ensure that the documents regarding the city's budget and purchase orders continue to be processed accurately and are available for viewing by the citizens of Pryor Creek.
Budgeting's one area that we can really help our vision. For every grant that we get, that's another dollar we free up for the city to fix a pothole, build a pool. I don't feel that we haven't actively pursued grants here since I believe the 900 megahertz radio, which that really wasn't a grant. Any police department that wanted it basically filled it out and handed it to you when they went to the new band. There's a lot of grant money out there, and there's a lot of things that we can do to get that, and that's one of the things that I want to focus on, is a laser focus on getting grant money. The other thing that I was successful in Nowata with was collecting outstanding fines. We had almost $500,000 of outstanding fines that hadn't been collected in forever. We went out and in 1 year's time, we knocked $200,000 off that, which that was more money that we got to put back in the budget. That's how we got 2 new police vehicles. Those are the things I think we need to look at. The police department, yes, is a separate department, but every dollar that we don't have to spend in the police department is a dollar we can spend somewhere else. And I look at things from a global view when it comes to the police department.
As far as the city budget goes on a police department, I mean, if anybody that knows about city government in Oklahoma, it's based off sales tax. Sales tax is up, you know, you got more money, but we also know the economy right now. The economy, everything's higher, so it costs more to do your job, to do the business. So the budget is a tricky one, and that's going to take the work. One person can't fix all the problems. It takes the guys, all the elected officials working together, the city council, the mayor, working together to look at our line items and make sure we're staying within budget on things. And making sure, looking at the structure of the department. I mean, you got to look at inside and say, are the officers, everybody within, being utilized to the best interest of the city and to the department as a whole? And so those are things that we can look at. The training budget is an important one, and I know that one's down. It's always been pretty slim, and it's really slim. Utilizing your officers within, utilizing those area resources that we have. There is a lot of grants out there on the training side of it. Work with our area alliances. I know that the Hope Coalition, you know, when I was here, they sent us on trainings, and that we could go on their dime. They paid for it, and so you may have to backfill that officer spot, and that's where we're getting creative with, you know, if the chief's got to work a street or a shift, or, you know, somebody in the admin has to work it, that's what we have to do to make things work smoothly. So it's going to be a team effort, and, you know, that's where it starts with your administration, you know, working with them, and then working with the city government to see what's best, not only for the police department, but for the city as a whole, because it's the city's money.
I've had the opportunity to work under 7 different mayors since I've been chief of police, and a number of different city council members who somewhere on the budget committee. But I've always worked with the mayors on the budget, not only on the police department's budget, but I've tried to look at the overall city budget to see if there's anything that we could do within our department that might be able to help the entire city budget. You know, we've had some tough times. Here a few years ago, there were a lot of cities that were laying people off, but the city of Pryor did not have to lay anybody off, and it was because of the foresight that administration had previously, so that people didn't have to lose their jobs, and we kept up our amount of services that we have. I've also obtained thousands of dollars in grants. We still obtain grants now. We just got some grants recently, and we'll continue to do so and look at those as we can to apply for them to keep them going. And The operations do depend on sales tax in the city, and it's been a tough economy. The coronavirus hit us all really hard, and we had to make do. We had to figure out ways to still keep the coverage of people on the streets, whether that was police, fire, parks, or whatever, to provide those services for the citizens. So we'll constantly be looking at ways that we can reevaluate and possibly partner with other people to make things better for the city of Pryor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That ends our prepared questions segment of the evening. I think we're going to do a quick giveaway, and then we're going to go to our audience questions. So if you have those audience questions, I have them here. If anybody else had another one. All right, so we're going to draw a name out, or excuse me, we're going to draw a number out of here. So go ahead and get your tickets ready. All right, let's see what you pulled out of here. Everybody got their tickets out? The last three are 527. One more ticket. The last three are going to be 549. And then the next one is 537. So those three winning numbers are, last three are 527, 537, and 549. All right, go ahead and go see her, and we'll after the event. So we have a few questions from the audience. They are skewed towards the chief of police. So I'm going to ask the one city clerk question, and then we're going to go ahead and slide over into chief of police. Again, this is a 2-minute response, but we'll just go through these, and then we'll get to the refreshments, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and start with city clerk, as I said. The one question we received: the law requires a minimum recording of minutes for city council meetings. Do you feel minutes should reflect highlights of all issues or just a voting record on the issues as it is now? Read that one again.
Can you?
I will read that one again, but just out loud. The law requires a minimum recording of minutes for city council meetings. Do you feel minutes should reflect highlights of all issues or just a voting record on the issue as it is now?
So like highlights and the voting record, like everything?
I believe that is the idea.
Okay, I mean, I would say, yes, I would say as many details as possible, like just for transparency reasons, yeah.
I agree. I believe that minutes should include basically everything that happened within the session to give you an accurate record. If you weren't in attendance, that you could just read it and understand exactly what happened at the city council meeting.
Now we've got 5 or 6 questions for the chief of police candidates. The first one, I think this is just a simple yes or no. If you want to raise your hand, if you have done this, have you ever been elected to an administrative position before? Oh, okay, so 2 yes and 1 no. Okay, all right. What are your plans for future positive police involvement, such as at youth events and other community events? I'll read that one more time. What are your plans for future positive police involvement, such as at youth events and other community events?
Well, I think that all goes back to kind of what everybody said as far as getting the community involved. One of my pledges is to rebuild the reserve program, and I plan on having a reserve program at school every day that is possible. That's a free force multiplier. It helps supplement the DARE program, gets the children, builds a relationship with the kids, with the police department. That's one of the things I can think of off the top of my head that I plan on doing.
So 21 years of law enforcement, the 4 or 5 years I spent in Pryor schools was some of the funnest of my career. And I learned more in that 4 and 5 years than I did a lot of time on the street. When you're on the street, you're putting people in jail, but you get into the school system and you start dealing with kids, and it's a different atmosphere. And you learn a lot of things, and my wife, it took a while. She's a social worker, I'm a cop. So working together in that atmosphere taught me a lot about empathy and dealing with the children. When you start dealing with the fourth grader and you start seeing some problems, well, then you go home and guess where the problems are coming from? They're coming from a parent. So guess what you're seeing? You're seeing those kids that have no direction just go through the system, whether it be teachers seeing it or, officers. So that's where the DARE program was so great. It put an officer, it's the only program that put the police officer in the school teaching the curriculum. And they changed that curriculum over the years to say no to drugs wasn't working. So a lot of that curriculum has changed. It teaches about the bullying. It teaches about communication styles. It teaches about consequences. It teaches all those things straight to the student. And that's where being the DARE instructor, taught me a lot. So I hit those fourth graders and I could teach that, and little kids, you can teach them stranger danger. They know that. Kindergartners, you can, teach them things. But when you get into junior high, high school, it changes things. So I kind of worked a little different on that aspect of it. I thought, how could that police officer still be that role model in the school with those kids? And that's where bringing programs, mock corrects, victim impact panels, right before the proms, motivational speakers, the things that we put on. So as far as that aspect of it, I've got an upper hand, and there's 5 SROs right now, and I know that job, like the back of my hand, and I know things that the impact that job makes. That job makes as big impact as any in law enforcement that you can do, and that community, putting that officer in those school systems is as big as you can do. And there's some officers that have great ideas that have come. So there's officers, let them do those things that they want to do in this community and with those, in the school districts.
Whenever possible, we do want to provide officers at these functions, whether they're after-school dances or any special activities that they have. We've tried to partner up and provide officers, provide security for those issues. The DARE program, I've heard it mentioned a couple of times tonight, that DARE program was administered under my administration in 1988. And our program with the school has grown. Again, Mr. Cantrell just mentioned, we have 5 full-time school officers now. And we could only do that by partnering with the Pryor Public School System. And we did partner with them. We do provide them full-time, year-round, that helps the students and the staff maybe feel more secure because they are there. But again, it's my hope that anytime we have any after-school events or outside events, if there's any way possible, we want to provide officers to add that extra layer of protection, not only for the kids, but to make the parents feel more comfortable knowing that law enforcement's there. Thank you.
All right, great, thank you. The next question is, what is your plan to address the homeless problem? What is your plan to address the homeless problem?
The homeless problem is not just an issue for the police department. It's not just an issue for the city of Pryor. The homeless problem is a statewide, nationwide issue. A lot of the homeless issues that we have in this area are attributed to mental health. And we are constantly trying to work with our mental health providers here to try to get these people some type of help, placement. A lot of the problems with some of these people, they don't want any help. And it's hard for us to try. We can't force them to do something. So we're trying to team up with Grand Lake Mental Health now to provide some additional counseling if possible, if we can get these people to get counseling for those issues. And again, it's not all mental health issues. There are other people that are just down on their luck and out. But again, it's not an issue that the police department can solve by itself. Yes, you can utilize us, and we are the first line. And we may be the ones that take the reports, get the information to these other agencies until we can figure out how we can possibly deal with these issues. So we'll be looking at that. Thank you.
I mean, first, you're going to have to figure out, where's the problem coming from? And I've got some ideas. We mentioned Grand Lake Mental Health, those areas, and we've got to figure out, what's the source of the problem? Where are they coming from? Part of that's talking to the people that we're dealing with on the street, and officers, maybe been an officer 21 years, we're not mental health professionals. I mean, we're police officers. So you put a police officer, years and years ago, it was 2 hours of mental health is what you had. So you're dealing with a subject that you have very little training on. So I know that's changing. The pendulum's starting to swing on it, but we need to focus on that on the training with officers, but focusing on the resource, and one person can't fix that problem. It's not, the city council can't fix it by themselves, the police department can't fix it. Grand Lake can't fix it. It takes a team effort. So you got to work, figure out where the problem's coming from, and then work with the resources that you have. Pryor has very little resources in that area, and so you've got to figure out what can we do as a team to try to combat what we're seeing, and then be a proactive approach on it, and it starts with all of us working together.
And I think that's one issue we've really dropped the ball on, is the homeless issue. We all know that we have a homeless issue. Nobody knows the numbers. I mean, nobody's sitting up here. Nobody in the city government knows the numbers. And everybody's right. It's not a police department problem or a city problem. It's a problem everywhere. But we need to address it. That's one that we better address in a hurry. Something I'm very passionate about. And it starts with training for the officers. The officers better know which category that homeless person sets in and address it appropriately. Because if you're trying to address a drug addict under the assumption that they're just somebody down and out on their business, you're liable to get hurt, or we're going to get a citizen hurt. We need to be very proactive. We need to get data. I mean, the first question we all need to know is how many's here? We don't even know that. And the chief of police is going to have to work hand in hand with the city council, and there's going to be some very tough conversations that have to be had about how we're going to fix that. But I think it all starts with getting the training and finding out exactly what kind of numbers we're dealing with. And a lot of times these people are being shipped in from Tulsa and other cities. But we need to find out if that's true. That's what I've been told by several people. If it is true, we need to find a way to stop that. That's a police and a city commission problem. And I think that I can do that.
All right, thank you. The next question is, what is your department plan to curb the excessive traffic in neighborhoods, both speed and other traffic infractions such as running stop signs?
I guess it's just neighborhoods. I think that all goes back to the scheduling, putting the right people in the right place, and leadership saying, hey, this is important. 169, one of my big talking points and something I feel passionate about. We have people crashing there all the time, semis running the stoplights. What usually happens? Somebody dies or gets hurt real bad. The paper, people get mad, they write in. For a few weeks, a month, you see a real good concentration of law enforcement on the intersections, and then that disappears. We need to have a continuous focus, and if we're looking at the data, if we're looking at where those things are happening, and we're positioning our officers accordingly, those will automatically go down. Once people realize the school zones, I drive to work and I live right by a school. I'll be running 20 miles per hour through the school zone, have people honk at me, flip me the bird, and pass me in the school zone. And there's a school resource officer sitting there. He's in the school doing what he should be. But there should be an officer. When I was at Nowata, chief of police sat at the school. We sat in the school zone. Not to try to get people for 3 over, but when people see the cop car, they're like, oh, I forgot school zone. They automatically slow down. Just being there helps the problem. When's the last time you saw cops sitting in the school zones at appropriate times? It's been a while. Highway Patrol sits at Lincoln more than I see the PD. I think that's something that we really need to work on and address.
So I started at Shoto before I came to Pryor. Shoto didn't have call volume. You could sit out there and work traffic all day long. When I come to Pryor, if you've been in Pryor on an evening shift, the staffing is not very high. I mean, officers, you may have 3, 4 officers, but there's a lot of calls. Call volume starts ramping up. You got to prioritize. So it is hard as a law enforcement on some of that aspect. So you got to look at the staffing part of it, because if you start getting a lot of call volume, you've got to take your calls. So officers, and you get tied up, and I know mental health used to be one that would tie an officer up for 4 hours. So there goes an officer off the street for 4 hours is going to tie him up. So being proactive, getting your officers that morale back up, getting those active officers back out on the street, communication with the community, because knocking on doors over the last month and a half, I've had people say at 5 o'clock, it's like a racetrack down here. And it is busy. I mean, I've stood on 9th Street and Elliott, and there's a lot of traffic that starts piling into town. 69, if you've been out there about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it's busy. So working within that department to figure out, you know, that structure and making sure the resources are where they need to be at. And then, you know, working on some grant funding. There are some grant sources out there, you know, as far as the traffic enforcement goes on the highways or wherever it may be, and then do specialized enforcements in those areas as well. But also, like I said, on the officers, you know, trying to make sure that the staffing is there during those peak times where you're going to have a lot of traffic going on.
We do encourage our officers to try to work as much neighborhood traffic and highway traffic as they possibly can, and we do. We get a lot of other calls. They get called off those if they have a special assignment. In this past year, we had a highway safety grant for speed enforcement, and we actually had paid officers overtime to work those areas. And Mr. McClellan mentioned we've had a couple of really serious accidents out on South 69 Highway. What a lot of people don't realize is those trucks weren't just trying to run the red light. The vehicles in front of them had actually stopped and were sitting stopped at the red light, and these trucks just ran into the back of them. And it was the case of these truck drivers were not paying attention to them. So I'm in conversations right now with the highway department to see if there's any way that we can look at some other items that can help identify that there's stoplights ahead, slow down. That may be to reduce the speed limits out there. You know, the speed limit out there in front of Walmart and at 69A is 55 miles an hour. And if you've got a trucker that's really not familiar with this area and he's running along, he thinks he's in a rural area, then he's driving 55 miles an hour. It's almost impossible for them to shut that down. And I'm not saying there's not trucks that are intentionally running the red lights, and we do issue citations from time to time on that. And vehicles also. It's not just truck drivers. But speeding in the neighborhoods, if you have an issue, call the police department. We'll try to address the issue as much as we can. Same way with stop signs. You know, we try to get people used to stopping at stop signs, or you're going to get in the habit of rolling up, and I'm just going to start rolling through all of them. So we encourage our officers to stop them. So we will address those as we can. Thank you.
All right, great. Our last question, and this was actually on many of the cards that were sent in. So, why are you running for chief of police? That question popped up several times. Why are you running for chief of police?
Again, I'm running for chief of police because this has been, since 1973, this has been my life. This has been my passion, was law enforcement and for the city of Pryor. My 50 years has been spent entirely with the city of Pryor. Because again, I grew up here, I love this community, I've enjoyed leading the police department, and I would like to continue, if the citizens so desire, I'd like to continue in that role and provide a professional, efficient police department for our community. Thank you.
So going back to the 21 years of law enforcement, that 4 years in the school, you know, really inspired me to where I'm at. But also, as a lieutenant for GRDA police, working with my guys, working with the ones on the street, and you know, working with administration, working with them, you know, building that morale. The guys liked working with me, and I liked working with them. The community events that I was able to do over the years, I love that part of it. And as an elected official, it's a balancing act. You've got a department to run, but you also got a community you're answering for as an elected official, the voters that vote you into that spot. So you're in a tricky spot. And so building the morale of Pryor PD back up to where it was is my goal and what I want to see. A lot of these officers that are here are officers I've worked with for years of my career. And you look at a career and you look at, you know, where's the biggest difference you can make, you know, in your life. I mean, what do you want to do, you know, and being the chief of police at Pryor Police Department has always been there for me and been one of them that I wanted to do and where I want to spend the end of my law enforcement career.
Like I said, the only reason I ran was for the citizens of Pryor Creek. I see some issues. I see some issues not getting addressed. I've dealt with them before. I just want to fix them. I want to be able to live here and not have to work. I'll be honest with you. Up until 6 months ago, I never locked my front door. Didn't feel I needed to. Now I have security cameras. I have my front door locked. I have a dog. I want to get back to the way it used to be, and I think we have that option. There's some things that we can do, some simple things, to move the police department in the correct direction, and that's the only reason I want to run. The police department's needing some leadership at the moment. My goal is to be able to do it for 4 years, get it straightened out, and hand it off to somebody that can continue to run it. Just to be honest with you, that's about all I want. But I want to fix it. I want to get it straightened out. It's going to take about 4 years, and hand it off to somebody that will maintain that.
Great, thank you. We have just a quick announcement, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up and move into our refreshment session. So for just a moment.
Thank you. For those that don't know me, I'm Yvette Barham, and I am now at the Chamber. I'm so excited. So I want to say thank you, Friends of the Library, for all of the hard work and for partnering with us. Thank you to the candidates and the leadership that you're exhibiting. I'm so excited that no matter what, you're each going to continue to serve in our community. And I want to say thank you, Barbara, for allowing us this opportunity, because if it weren't for her, the Chamber would not be here the way that it is. So for those that won the tickets, please come see me. And then you have won a free ticket to the Oklahoma Tackle, Hunting, and Boat Show, which is happening the 10th, 11th, and 12th. All right? So thank you very much.
All right, just real quick on my closing thoughts on this. First off, thank you to the candidates. I think everyone did a great job, and I'm sure everyone appreciates it. Thanks, everyone, for letting me get through my first moderating experience. As I said, if you have direct questions for the candidates afterwards, you can talk to them in the refreshment area. Just as a couple quick notes, our next events, as I said, for City Council will be Monday, February 6th at 6 p.m. in this building, and Thursday, February 9th at 6 p.m. in this building for the mayor's portion of this. So again, both of those events will be here at the Graham Community Building, 6 North 8 Air, and we hope to have you here for those. So again, on behalf of the Friends of the Pryor Creek Library and the Pryor Area Chamber of Commerce, thank you all for coming out. Candidates, thank you very much, and have a great night. Thank you.